Welcome everybody. We're glad to be here. Karen Vignari, and I just wanted to share with you, we have been a proud member of the network, Every Learner Everywhere. We're excited to be able, because of the generosity of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to present to you a collaborative service from both APLU, ACAO, and for those of you that might be joining with a community college perspective, we do include our colleagues ATD as the time arises when community colleges are involved as well. Laura, did you want to say anything else in your intro, and then I'll move through the slides?
Yeah, sure. The Association of Chief Academic Officers is a higher ed organization that has a mission of offering resources and coaching to all institutions across all variables. So we offer coaching and we offer resources to the public institutions, also the private institutions. And we go up and down the structure line from community colleges to 4-year to R1. So our effort is to engage chief academic officers in helping to mentor faculty to do a better job with teaching and learning, and specifically for this situation around high flex and online learning.
Thanks, Laura. Yep. Most of you probably know APLU already, but I am going to say a little bit more about the Personalized Learning Consortium, which I have the privilege of managing right now. So the Personalized Learning Consortium has been working with institutions for over 7 years now around improving teaching and learning with the use of effective technologies. So we have been primarily working on activities around the inclusion of adaptive courseware at your lower division courses in order to improve student success. The inclusion of adaptive courseware is certainly not the be all and end all of what we're trying to do. We're trying to help faculty actually improve student success, especially for equity groups, our students, as Norma already alluded to, those that are both low income and students of color. But the important part of why you would add digital technologies is that it gives you additional information, and therefore faculty can adjust instruction as part of that. I'm also going to just flip through the slide that gets you to Achieving the Dream. So our partners, Achieving the Dream, we work together collaboratively. We just finished some projects around what we called lighthouse work, and have learned to enjoy each other's company as we try to improve digital learning throughout our process of actually working directly with faculty and chairs. So I will just move over to how Every Learner Everywhere describes digital learning. Digital learning compromises the technology and tools. You'll notice some of the same language were used to describe what the personalized learning does. So I think what we're really trying to do here is, through the digital learning, faculty can adapt instruction to student capabilities, promote active and collaborative learning. We believe that faculty work very hard, but the necessary tools are some things that they don't always have. And in this COVID moment that we all live, we think there's a huge opportunity to talk about improving your classroom, particularly now that we don't have the same kind of physical space that we had in many of our relationships with our students before. So we created a service, again, through the generosity of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and working through Every Learner Everywhere, which we called Managing Learning Continuity. And I certainly recognize that maybe that doesn't completely describe what we're trying to do. In some ways, I wish I would have put the word beyond managing learning continuity, because not only are we trying to help all of our institutions continue instruction, what we are trying to do is to make sure not only do you continue, but it thrives and our students are engaged and our students continue to be successful. That to us is what's really important. So we're going to describe how we would do that work if you choose to follow up with Every Learner Everywhere about this service. And I'm having, there we go. Sorry. So some of the basics are all institutions are scrambling, but the students are at risk, and we all know this. So what we're trying to do is help institutions prepare. Both APLU and ACAO have been working with grants that are targeting these lower division, first experience, early sequence courses, both in STEM, and I should have put in general education there as well. We want to work with institutional academic leaders. We also work with lead faculty, and we work through a cohort of institutions. Why are cohorts important? Well, they are both collaborative and to some extent competitive. So what we find is institutions learn from each other, and it also improves their internal performance. So leadership needs to be at the table to promote and support this, but also commit to a continuous improvement. So APLU has been providing technical assistance for those academic leads that help them manage through course design process. Adaptive learning is a digital teaching tool that comes with instruction and assessments that are scoped and sequenced to support an entire course. Now, there are some adaptive tools where you could use just for parts of your course, but the tool is, again, important, but it's not as important as giving faculty data so then they can adjust. They know, oh, my student is stuck here, then I get the information to go out and personalize the instruction with that student. And that is an incredibly powerful tool for the faculty to have. So the benefits for the instructors are always looking, we believe, to help their students, right? And the problem is, even if they're giving sort of regular assessments and they've got multiple valued assessments in there, they're still often not getting early real-time data on their students. And so the course design process that we would guide you through would think about not only how are we delivering the course. We have to be honest in saying right now many of us may be in a social distance classroom. We may be ready to move to virtual instruction. We may be teaching online from the very beginning of our course. So we have to think about the critical first weeks for our students, and we need certain kinds of data in order to know more about our students. And by using these tools, what we're finding is that the instructor has more time to spend thinking about what they do with the classroom time. What do they do with the synchronous time? And what we've learned, and part of this comes from our colleagues' work at Titan Partners and Digital Promise. What we've been able to learn is that in order to add these tools and to think about how we're going to adjust the course design, faculty really need time to prep. They really need to think about their tool choice, because the tool choice embeds content and assessment that has to be aligned to what you're teaching, or there have to be some willingness to change what you're doing. Right? That integration into the course is also something that faculty need to spend a lot of time thinking about before the course starts. And then we help them think about what else will they modify in the course if they're increasing the use of digital or adaptive tools. During the instruction of the course, what we also find is faculty need to learn new behaviors, right? Faculty need to learn to look at their learning analytics dashboards, whether that's within the LMSs or whether that's within the digital tool sets. And that constant review of student progress prompts additional instructional activities in the classroom, again, both an online classroom or a socially distanced classroom. This is giving the students a lot more feedback, and it's also giving them time to practice. And that's important for the students, particularly now if you happen to be in a situation where you're not physically together. It's harder for students to, particularly those first-year students, to actually understand what it is they should be doing. So Laura and I wanted to share with you a little bit about the programs we ran and what that meant to both our institutions as well as to our students. Hang on. So in the current grant, it is not completed yet. It will be completed soon. The acceleration of adoption and adaptive courseware. Our institutions were asked to scale adaptive learning into at least 15% of their general education courses. And you can see the list of institutions. Some of them are actually part of the current IFS groups that are attending today's webinar. One of the things that we know by having faculty work together, which is a really important part of the process, is that we can scale faster. And you will see how successful we were. Most of our institutions were able to actually get above that 15% amount of the use of digital tools inside of their classroom. But what is so much more exciting to us, and we hope will be important to you, is that by having improved student success, we have saved our students $12 million in not repeating courses. This is an important part. We're talking about 250,000 enrollments, generally speaking, and these students are saving money. They're saving money. They're also moving faster in their retention efforts and their progress to degree. You can see that we are not trying to organize this around one technology. We're not trying to organize this in one discipline. So there's a lot of choice for faculty and a lot of choice for departments. Laura, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the Digital Fellows Project.
Yes, thank you. The Digital Fellows Project, also sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, started in 2017, and we are just wrapping up in 2020. It's similar in some ways to Karen's project. We integrated many more institutions, altogether 31, and those 31 institutions were from community colleges, four-year publics, small privates, and even R1. So we had everything from Potomac Community College, which has about 1,200 students, to the University of Central Florida, which I believe is around 60,000. And what our effort was to try to leverage the influence of chief academic officers, whether they're called provosts or vice presidents for academic affairs, that doesn't matter, but we realized that all of us were really, really old faculty members, and we still shared a lot of common values, one of which was show us something that's going to help our students learn, show us something that will help especially our students of color and low-income students learn, and we will adopt it. We don't need a lot of convincing beyond the data that shows us that it works. What we did in the Digital Fellows project was to introduce institutions via their chief academic officers to what adaptive digital courseware was through a series of convenings. Altogether, there were 5 of them. And through that process, we then asked them to go back to their campuses, put together a team of faculty members, and choose a product that would help them for a first-year experience course. It was primarily in algebra, pre-calc, and chemistry that the choices were made. And then through a year and a half process, they piloted digital courseware in certain classes and multi-class courses so they could compare the DFW rate in the course that used adaptive courseware as opposed to the ones that did not. We're just looking at the data right now, and in 30 of the 31 institutions involving 7,500 students and about 80 different courses, we found that there were improvements in the pass rate and retention. Karen?
Thanks, Laura. So I want to take these next 2 slides to sort of focus a little bit about how we'll do this work with you. But I do want to encourage any of you that have questions to please put them in the Q&A or in the chat. Either one is perfectly acceptable for us. And so what we're really trying to do with this is we're hoping that we can focus on preparing institutions to improve student success regardless of the modality that you will be experiencing over the next year and beyond. So we're working with the view that we have to be flexible. We really want to build the capacity of the faculty and the institution to personalize instruction, and reduce those achievement gaps. And we want to provide institutions with a model that can scale across all sections. So the length of this service, I went too far, would come in about 3 phases, right? Our phases are working together. We think it's really important to hear from chief academic officers and VPs or AVPs of either what you might call digital learning, or it might be the teaching and learning, or it might be the undergraduate dean. Those people that are fully grounded in how do we improve those first-year experience. We would also be working with the institutions to identify what are the primary courses and what's the makeup of your project team. And then we would go through a phase 2 where there would be a workshop series for those institutional teams. We will have some resource playbook documents. We will also have a standalone very short online course. It will be self-paced. It will not be one that you have to participate in. And then we will have regular cohort meetings with the lead so that that's sharing. And then we will do some one-to-one. So as we go into phase 3, we would really be working on the courses with you, and we'd be working on that redesign capability. We would have instructional practice types of workshops. So we have a little bit more detail on these phases in our upcoming slides, but also want to encourage those of you that might have any questions for us to go ahead and ask those questions as well. So Laura, did you want to talk a little bit about this slide since you'll be kicking most of this work off?
Yeah, ACAO provides webinars and what we call town hall meetings and Ask the Provost webinars on a regular basis, and we choose topics that we think are of interest and timely. What we're focusing on right now is the pivot during the spring of 2020, and most of us have actually had to lead an institution through that, through the spring and into the fall. So what we would do is choose a number of chief academic officers to offer 5 webinars, and these would be active VPAAs who would have had the opportunity to go through this. And I actually asked them what they thought might be some good topics. So promising practices for high flex institutions. What do I mean by high flex? It is not online, not completely online. It is not face-to-face, obviously, and it's not what people have called hybrid. It's something new, which we had not experimented much with before the spring. And that is a sort of practice where you're teaching mostly synchronously using video conferencing. We might as well say Zoom at this point, but there are other opportunities as well to hold classes in which some of your students are sitting in front of you and they are socially distanced and masked, and others of your students are attending the class virtually, usually by some technologically enhanced smart classrooms and cameras and microphones and so forth. So when you have students both in front of you and at a distance at the same time, that's what we're calling high flex. And that's not the only way that the spring and now the fall will have changed digital learning in institutions, but it's a big one. And the one that really is important, I think, because we were taking nationally thousands of faculty members who were not our early adopters and even our medium adopters. We're talking about faculty members who probably would have had no interest in online, some of them, but they were forced to all go into the virtual environment in the spring. And then a lot are going to have to either straddle that in the fall or go back to fully virtual and then straddle in the spring. So high flex is the bridge that we are all going to have to walk across in order to get back to whatever we were doing in in-person instruction. So number one is going to be really interesting in terms of what's happening nationally. And then the second one is, if you can go back, I'll talk faster if I need to, Karen. But
yeah, we probably need to.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll be fast. The second one is really interesting, and that is when you go fully virtually, what do you do with clinical experiences, particularly in healthcare, where there has never been an online substitution? So how that worked. And then the third one, working with remote and adjunct faculty. These are faculty members who are given an accommodation because of health reasons, but they still need to be brought into the teaching environment. How to address issues of equity and high flex, and then changes in policies and procedures and shared governance in a pandemic, especially when you're working with a union environment. We're all doing things that sort of violate the usual practices of shared governance. Okay, did you want me to talk about the next slide?
Sure, and I can pipe in too, and we'll just go through that. Yep.
So this is what Karen was describing, and we're going to go into a part of this practice where we would have workshops for institutions, and we'll use a little bit of the approach I used with the digital fellows. The chief academic officer will work with instructional designers and faculty department chairs. The reason I'm choosing faculty department chairs here is that they are likely to be the ones in first experience courses where the faculty have agreed on certain common learning outcomes and even common texts or adaptive courseware. If you get into some of the other areas, there's less consensus within a department, so it's a little bit harder to work there, although in the Digital Fellows Project, we were able to do that. Recommended number on the team in the institution, 5 to 7, and we will then provide coaching for course redesign. So that's all I have on this slide, Karen.
Okay. So our final process is really that phase 3, which is called the change management process. And you can see we'll be working collaboratively. And those of you that may be joining us from a 2-year institution, that collaboration would include our colleagues at ATD. So we welcome those of you to be thinking about that if you are from a 2-year institution. If you're just from representing 4-year institutions, obviously it'll be APLU and ACAO working together. We will definitely have tool books. We will have tool kits and the online course for you, as well as resources. And so we'll be there to help you through this change management process. And we look forward to learning with you. I think we're turning it over to Q&A.